Hello everyone, welcome to the YouTube channel of NITYA Tax Associates. So in this video, we will be deliberating upon the recent Supreme Court ruling in the case of Cosmo Films, wherein Supreme Court has upheld the validity of pre-import condition in case of advance authorization. So in this video, I will be deliberating upon what precisely is the advance authorization and what is the pre-import condition which was introduced in that advance authorization scheme, and what was the litigation which was going around with respect to that pre-import condition, and what the Supreme Court latestly held basis its in its discussion. What should be the way forward for the exporters who are availing that benefit? So starting with the legislative background, firstly, I would like to give a brief about the Advance Authorization Scheme. So, under Advance Authorization Scheme, a manufacturer can import duty-free raw material after fulfillment of certain export obligations. So, meaning thereby, the all the if any exporter is availing benefit of Advance Authorization Scheme, he is not liable to pay any duties and taxes on the import of goods made under such scheme. So, if I talk about the background of this scheme, prior to introduction of GST, all the duties and taxes like BCD, CVD, and the special additional duty which was applicable on the imports were exempted under advance authorization without any specific condition. However, when the uh, GST regime made applicable with effect from 1st of July 2017, since the government did not carry forward those exemption of IGST and cess under GST regime if the imports are made under advance authorization scheme. So this was causing really hardship for the exporters who were facing a working capital blockage since they have to discharge IGST and cess while importing those goods. So many exporters filed the representation before the government, and ultimately acting upon those representation, government reintroduced this benefit of exemption from IGST and cess. Government also exempted IGST and cess on the imports made under Advance Authorization Scheme. However, this benefit was made subject to pre-import condition and physical import incorporation of inputs in the exported products. So, firstly, I would like to give a brief background of what is pre-import condition. So, the term pre-import has not been defined anywhere under the GST or FTP or customs law. So, the department interpreted this pre-import as that taxpayer should import duty-free inputs first for use in the manufacture of export goods, and thereby discharge their export obligation with those goods only. However, exporters were not aware of this condition introduced with effect from 13th October 2017. So they carry on their exports on post exports. Many of exporters carried on their export on post export basis, meaning they were exporting the finished goods first and then importing the inputs duty free as a replenishment of those inputs. So, seeing all these difficulties and working capital issues being faced by the exporter, the government ultimately removed this pre-import condition from the from for availing advance authorization benefit. So that condition was removed with effect from January 10, 2019. So ultimately, this dispute is with respect to that intervening period only. That is the period starting from October 13, 2017 to the period between to January 9, 2019, wherein this pre-import condition was in existence and exporter did not fulfill this condition. Now, I would like to discuss the jurisprudence with respect to the period 13th October 2017 and January 19, 2019, wherein this condition was pre-import condition was in existence. So there has been a mixed jurisprudence with respect to the same. So firstly, I would like to discuss the judgment of Vedanta Limited with the Madras High Court. on the ground that this is causing hardship to the exporter, and exporters and government cannot put such conditions for availing benefit of advance authorization scheme, since it will be against the policy, or you can say the overall objective of the government. So, however, the court denied the contention of the applicant and held that advance authorization scheme, since it's a matter of public policy which has been introduced by the government, and judiciary is not entitled to interfere therein. Secondly, the court also held that not allowing benefit of IGST exemption is not altering, is not anyway impacting the benefit of the scheme, since exporter are otherwise eligible to claim refund or credit of the IGST they have paid on the import of goods. So ultimately, the court held that this pre-import condition is constitutionally valid. Now I would like to discuss one favorable judgment pronounced by the Gujarat High Court in Maxim Tubes Company Private Limited, wherein also this condition was challenged before the High Court. The High Court take cognizance of the submissions made by the revenue and taxpayer, and held that held that this the pre-import condition is constitutionally invalid, since the FTP, the ultimate objective of FTP is to boost exports from the country, and putting of these kind of condition will hamper that benefit granted to the exporters. The court also held that the advance authorization holder which are fulfilling the pre-import condition, and which are importing inputs after exporting, so due to this condition, those advance authorization holder are put on different footings, which is again causing hardship for the exporters. So, basis all this reasoning, the Gujarat High Court held that this pre-import condition imposed in the ad for availing benefit of advance authorization is ultra virus, the advance authorization scheme, and same cannot be made cannot be made applicable. So due to this multiple jurisprudence on the issue, the matter ultimately went to the Supreme Court, wherein Supreme Court heard the case at length and ultimately delivered its judgment in the Cosmo Films. Now I would like to deliberate upon that Supreme Court judgment, wherein Supreme Court has upheld the constitutional validity of this pre-import condition. The Supreme Court has based its decision primarily on the ground that the hardship to the exporter cannot be a ground for striking down the pre-import condition. The government has very well empowered to uh, put any restriction or condition to claim any kind of exemption. Secondly, the Supreme Court held that there is no wrong on the part of government to introduce this pre-import condition for all the goods. Thirdly, Supreme Court has held that since GST has been introduced with effect from 1st of July 2017, and GST being a new law, so it is not a right for the assessees or for the exporters to claim every exemption which was prevalent under the pre-GST regime, and the same should also be provided in the GST regime. So it is at the discretion of the government whether to grant such exemption or not under the new law. So basis all the above ground, Supreme Court held that pre-import condition is constitutionally valid, and same cannot be stuck down only because of the fact that same is causing hardship to the exporter and curtailing the benefit which were granted to them in the earlier regime. So now I would like to deliberate upon the what way forward will be for the exporter, and what implications will be there on the exporter due to this adverse judgment of Supreme Court. Firstly, in our view, this judgment is correct, and since this is a Supreme Court judgment, this becomes the law of land, and accordingly, the exporters were required to comply with the pre-import conditions. However, it is pertinent to mention that this judgment will have a limited applicability only between the period October 13, 2017 to January 10, 2019, since later on this condition was removed by the government itself by amending the foreign trade policy. So the importers who have not complied with the pre-import condition during the intervening period, that is the period from October 13, 2017 to January 10, 2019. So they will be required to deposit IGST on the imports made by them wherein pre-import condition has not been fulfilled. The issue for consideration that arise here is whether importer shall be eligible to claim ITC of that amount which will be deposited by them after this Supreme Court judgment. So in our view, such importers shall be eligible to claim ITC or refund of that amount as the case may be. So, however, in order to claim that refund, importers are required to reassess their bill of entry since under the GST laws, ITC is claimed basis the bill of entry only, and moreover, the time limit prescribed under GST laws is not applicable on the bill of entry provision. So the next issue for consideration here is whether the taxpayer will also be liable to pay interest on the amount which will be deposited by them after this Supreme Court judgment. In our view, interest should not be applicable, and for this, the taxpayers can put reliance on the judgment of Mahindra and Mahindra, wherein it has been held that if there is no enabling provision, so interest cannot be levied. Meaning thereby, in order to levy interest, there must be some provision under the law, and since there is no provision under the Custom Tariff Act for levy of interest, so interest should not be applicable on this amount. Here, it is imperative to highlight that Supreme Court, in its concluding remarks, the judgment has held that the department must specify the procedure by way of circular for deposit of this amount. Hopefully, that department will clarify all these issue of levy of interest and eligibility of ITC or refund in that circular itself. That's all from our side. You can reach to us for any further query on this via the contact number or email ID presented on your screen. Stay tuned for our next updates. Thank you.